Hello, beasties. Welcome to Procrastination. Today I'm going to show you how I made Maleficent's magical staff. I love costuming and going to New York Comic Con. I've been going to New York Comic Con ever since 2011, and while I don't always go in costume, I love the environment. I love the feeling of being around people who share the same passions as me. I may not be the best at costuming, but each time I do it, I get better, and I try my darndest to be as perfect and on point with the costume as possible. For 2019 New York Comic Con, I decided to go as Maleficent from the second movie because it was just about to be released. So I've decided to share some of the footage that I took of myself creating my staff prop.
The main materials I used are a wooden dowel from Home Depot, a foam egg from Michaels, and 6mm thick black EVA foam. So first, I decided to work on the magical rock piece at the top of the staff. Before I started, I dug the dowel into one end of the egg to make a distinct hole so I can glue the egg to the dowel later. Next, I wrapped the entire egg with tape so that when I used the glue, it had a non-porous surface to stick to. Then I used Mod Podge and ripped up pieces of paper and glued them on the egg to seal the whole piece. Once that finished drying, I used a sanding block to make the surface a little smoother, then I used more Mod Podge on the whole piece to smooth it out even more. I didn't want it perfectly smooth because I wanted it to look organic. Then I moved on to the staff part. I cut out the EVA foam to wrap around the wooden dowel, then I laid down paper so I don't get glue on everything, and applied rubber cement on the EVA foam, the edges of the foam, and the wooden dowel. I waited for that to dry for 15 minutes and wrapped the foam around the dowel, starting at the edge of the foam and connecting the ends of the foam to each other. Now, back to the mystical egg. I started with a light green base to cover the entire shape, and then I painted over that with a metallic green to give it a mystical item look. I loved how this paint came out. After that, I used 3 more metallic colors to make it look like there's a magical swirl going on inside the shape. I didn't really know what the whole thing looked like because most of the reference pictures were from the same angle, so I just made it up as I went. I used a paper towel and dabbed the blue metallic color lightly to create the swirl pattern and make a nice slight gradient blend into the green. After that, I used more blue paint to make the color darker and concentrated. After the blue dried, I added yellow to the center of the green blobs. I got color shift paint for this part because it's supposed to shift to orange, and the next layer of color was orange anyway, so I thought it would be a neat effect. For this color, I used a paintbrush and painted in a circular motion. As you can see, I like to build up color, so I like to start very light with very little color on my brush, then add more color once that first layer dries to make the color much more vibrant. The last color to add in this mystical egg swirl was orange, so I added the orange within the yellow swirls and blended it. I gooped on the orange color more than the other colors because I wanted this color to stand out. Finally, I used black and painted strong black horizontal lines across the egg to imitate Maleficent's staff. I also used some dark brown oil paint and rubbed it onto the egg to give it a slight weathered and woodsy look, like this egg has seen some stuff. I finished the egg piece off by spraying it with a glossy clear finishing spray. So, looking at the reference pictures, there are vines growing up Maleficent's staff and over the mystical stone. So, I took a piece of EVA foam and cut out pieces on the base to try to make a general sphere shape. Next, I used a rotary tool with a sanding tip to give the entire pole some texture and imitate a wood texture. I wanted to create this base texture on the pole before I attached any more foam. Using the rotary tool again, I sanded down the edges of the piece I cut out for the vines around the stone, and I applied rubber cement. I sanded the edges so that they're at an angle so that when I glue it, it will create a rounded shape. Then I also applied rubber cement around the base of the stone on the EVA foam. I waited 15 minutes for that to dry and attached the piece to the pole below the stone. So with the foam attached at the base of the egg stone, I cut a little bit at a time by overlapping the sides, drawing a line where the edges overlap, and cutting off the excess foam pieces. I then glued the sides together with rubber cement. This is the part that I thought was the hardest. I forgot to film this part. I'm so sorry. With a white paint pen, I marked where I wanted to cut. With a reference of the staff, I cut out pieces of the foam over the mystical egg to make the foam look like vines that have overgrown over the mystical gem. I also took long strips of EVA foam and with rubber cement, attached them in a long twist going down the pole. After that, I used my rotary tool again to sand the EVA corners smooth and create a wood texture in the vines. So it was starting to look really good, but I didn't like how bluntly the foam stops at the base of the mystical egg. I wanted it to be a bit more natural looking with more vines at the base, making it less of an angle. I decided to take some foam scraps and cut and sand them to shape and glue them down at the base. So after I used rubber cement to attach the vine pieces by the base of the stone, I used tape to cover up the exposed painted stone at the top. I did this so that I can paint the staff without painting over the pretty mystical egg. Next, I used a heat gun on the entire piece to seal and smooth the EVA foam. Then I sprayed a few layers of black Plasti-Dip to seal the staff. With the staff sealed with Plasti-Dip, I painted dark brown oil paint on the raised surfaces of the staff. The black Plasti-Dip acts as a shadow while the brown oil paint highlights the raised parts and makes the staff look a bit more realistic. After using the brown oil paint, I let the staff dry for a few days because oil paint takes forever to dry. Then I sprayed the staff with a few layers of matte clear spray to seal the whole thing. When that was dry, I removed the tape covering the magical gem, and now I have a beautiful finished staff.
guys, thank you so much for watching my video. I'm so excited that I got to share another one of my hobbies with you guys, and I hope to show you a lot more in the future.
Okay, love you guys. Bye.